Okay, this is Bob's Essential Guide for the Single Guy, and this is making meatloaf. Now, meatloaf is one of the most important foods that if you're single or if you're just busy in life, basically meatloaf is one of the best foods in the world because you can take cheap hamburger, like for example, this hamburger right here was something like $2.70 a pound when normal hamburger is like $3.50 a pound. This is like the 30% fat kind of hamburger. Now if you try to make it in regular hamburgers fried up in a frying pan, it's not going to come out right at all. But if you put it into a meatloaf, it tastes just like regular hamburger and you don't notice the difference. See? So it allows you to use cheaper food, and also the hamburger is diluted with other stuff too, like I like to use cooked rice, equal portions of cooked rice and hamburger, or like breadcrumbs here, right? And breadcrumbs from the stuffing mix that was sitting in the closet and getting old. I had to use it, so I pulled it out, right? And so you get to use up stuff that would normally go bad if you don't use it. Now, so basically you make a meatloaf and take a slice of it every day, and it's in the lunchbox, a slice of it every day in the lunchbox, or it's a good way of using up foods. Like I haven't used the teriyaki sauce in a long time, so I'll use that up too. This was onion rings, right? This was onion rings from a fast food restaurant. And the onion rings got kind of mushy and not crispy anymore, so I put them in the food processor and reduced them down. I'm going to add them to the turkey. Now I'm using turkey today, right? So basically, and you can just use your hands, right? Just use your hands. Real easy to do, not hard. Now the turkey was getting freezer burned and stuff, so I had to use that up too. So, and one great thing about meatloaf is that you can put into it all kinds of stuff. If you go to a store and you buy meatloaf in the store, you're going to get some mediocre, politically correct meatloaf that most people like, but you're not going to like. It's not going to be interesting. It's not going to be interesting, and you're going to pay more for it, and you're going to get less out of it. Meatloaf is a personal thing, right? You'll really get something out of it. Now, you can combine the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients separately, because one of the keys is that meatloaf has to be not too moist when you cook it, or else it's going to end up turning into hamburger soup, right? So you don't want it to be too moist or too wet. So you might want the moist ingredients separate so you can control how much moisture there is in there, right? So I can add this later, right? This I should add some of this now. This onions, right? And then some spices, garlic powder. I like garlic. Okay. Relish. Anything you'd want to have on a hamburger, right? This is turkey, right? Any cheap meat is fine. Yeah, I want it more sweeter. So the relish is sweet. And then teriyaki sauce is going to be salty, right? And it's almost done, this teriyaki sauce, so I'm not putting in as much as you think I am. I'm just sprinkling what's left. Now, sliced jalapenos. They're just something you're not going to get in the store. couple of fingers worth of it. Maybe that's a little too much, right? And some ocean spray craisins. Now craisins are great because they're like, they're just like raisins, except they're made with cranberries. And I add them to a lot of stuff. It's good for Halloween, it's good for Thanksgiving, it's good for Christmas, it's good for like a lot of things. I guess that's one. No, that's fine. That's good enough. And then olives. I like olives. Now, when I was young, I hated olives when I was a kid and stuff. But now that I got older, you don't have to be precise about it. You're going to cook this, so I am not the best cook in the world. Tomato paste. I like tomato paste in meatloaf. Because what do you put on meatloaf? You put ketchup, right? What's ketchup? Ketchup is vinegar, it's garlic, and it's tomato paste. That's what it is. So I'll put the whole can in. What the heck? I like lots of tomato. Now, in a minute, I'm going to get my hands in here. Turkey does not have a lot of grease. Okay. Now, if you're going to make hamburger, especially the cheap stuff, the cheap hamburger is going to be very greasy. So the chances of a meatloaf failure are very great when you've got like really greasy stuff, because it's the fat that turns it to hamburger soup. Now, hamburger soup, I've had that already in a restaurant in the South once. And it was really, really great. You can make hamburger soup. Hamburger soup is great. But basically, if you add cooked rice to the hamburger, 50-50, it reduces the fat content, and you are much more likely to succeed. Now, it's too liquidy. So this was turkey stuffing mix that I put in the food processor and reduced it down. Oh. Still a little bit too moist. Okay, I think the consistency is better. Last step is 1 raw egg. The raw egg, when it cooks, will solidify. See? And I will finish mixing this later, and you'll see the end result. Okay. See this? Nice and brown. You have to put a little piece of aluminum foil over top to keep it from burning. But let's say there we go. Nice and beautiful. That's nice. Nice sharp knife here. A little bit rubbery, that's nice. And the top part is going to be a little bit crispy. And there we go. It looks really nice. Let's see if we can get a little olive in there. Yeah, little pieces of olive in there. When it gets cooler, it will get less spongy and a lot better. Oh, this is great. This is good. Right amount of spiciness too, because the mild jalapeno, not so mild, but it's perfect. Oh, but it's perfect. I have a second one in the toaster oven, and that's cooling off now. Okay. So that big mixing bowl makes about two meatloaves. Okay. So anyway, this is how it turns out, and it's perfect. Now, after in the refrigerator, it will stiffen up a lot more. It will solidify more and won't be as spongy. See. And this is the top part. The top part's nice and browned and crunchy in the right way. Now the aluminum foil kind of holds it together too while it's in the refrigerator, and when it's in the fridge, it will definitely solidify a lot better. Now also, I found some, with the other one, I was looking in the refrigerator, I found some salsa in there, in the fridge, and I added the salsa to it, to the other one. And so, if you've got, basically this is leftovers, right? Anything that's left over in your refrigerator, you throw them in, right? So here's this wonderful opportunity to use up stuff before they go bad. Now I did it with turkey this time, but basically you can do this with ham, you can do this with anything you want. And like with Thanksgiving, leftovers for Thanksgiving is perfect because You go to your relative's house and you get like all that turkey that's left over, and you cut it into strips and you put it right in the turkey meatloaf with the ground turkey. And now this goes in the fridge. I pull it out when I want lunch, you know, when I want to do lunch. So this is a useful skill to have because it's very quick and easy to do. And you put them on in the refrigerator, and it makes lunchtime during the week a whole lot easier. Okay, well, go ahead and try this out, because chances are there's stuff in the refrigerator you can use right now to make meatloaf, right? Okay, good luck, have fun. Okay, now a few parting thoughts on meatloaf. Basically, what makes meatloaf fail is too much fat, too much grease, and that's what makes it fail. It happens with hamburger, with meat that has way too much fat in it. I find the best way to deal with that is just to mix it 50% with cooked rice. And the cooked rice also makes it crispier when it cooks, right? So it has, what you want is that crispy top part of the meatloaf, okay? But when you, let's say you get too much grease and too much oil, too much fat in the pot, in the meatloaf, and basically it's too much liquid. Well, it's either hamburger soup, which is a good thing. You just dump it in a pot with a can of soup, right? Chicken soup usually. And then you just add like frozen mixed vegetables to it, and maybe a cup of rice, and keep cooking it and stirring it and stuff, and then it ends up being hamburger soup, which is something worthwhile making someday just for itself. Okay, it's hamburger soup. Now, but if there's too much grease in it, right, this is one thing you can do, right? Now, imagine. Now what you can do is you can put it, aluminum foil over it, right? And then, well, basically, you would put aluminum foil over it, right? And put it on its side on the edge of the sink, right? And you'd poke holes in the bottom of it. Like you'd poke holes like that, and then put it on the edge of the sink, and it let it drain into the sink, right? And then you do the other side, so you drain that into the sink too, as well. And then what you do, flip it over in the sink, basically, and take it out and put it back in the pan again. Right. And then that way it's upside down, and the bottom part of the roast, or the bottom part of the meatloaf that was soaked in the grease and stuff that you drained, now you broil that part and it becomes nice and brown, and you crispied basically both sides of it, which is a good thing. See, if you can get that to work, it comes out even better. Because you get more of that black and brown caramelized top of the meatloaf. See, so that's one of those tricks. But basically, it's better not to have the problem in the first place, right? Now you can also basically, why eggs? Why do you put an egg in it? The reason why you put an egg in it is because when eggs start off liquid and when exposed to heat, they solidify, right? When fat or cheese, for example, if you want to put cheese in the meatloaf, which is a good idea, cheese works well in the meatloafs, especially blue cheese. Especially blue cheese. Blue cheese, you crumble that up into the meatloaf, that works good. Cheese starts off a solid, exposed to heat, turns to a liquid, and then turns back to a solid again when it cools, just like fat, right? So you put the egg in there, and the egg holds it together. And you just make sure that, and just one raw egg is necessary. That's all it is. And so it shouldn't really make that much difference. Now, about the grease problem, you can choose other kinds of meat, right? You're not limited to any kind of meat. You don't have to just use hamburger, right? You can mix it with turkey. You can do turkey meatloaf. You can mix it. Turkey meatloaf for like Thanksgiving, for example, you could mix the maybe 2 pounds of ground turkey with a pound of ground chicken, for example, and it provides more flavor to it. You want to basically, you could take hamburger and you can mix it with some turkey, mix it with some chicken, or ground pork, whatever you want to do. Like sausage is usually a mixture of several different meats, right? Sausage, very often. So you could take meatloaf and you can mix meatloaf with ground pork, ground turkey, ground chicken, whatever you want to do, and it will reduce the fat content down and maybe improve the flavor. You don't have to stick with any kind of meat, and you don't have to stick with any kind of grain, right? Meatloaf is basically ground meat, a grain, some spices, and maybe some adjuncts, some additional things, like maybe vegetables, or like the craisins that I threw in. So raisins, craisins, you could do like, for example, a Hawaiian meatloaf, which I did for a party, and it was a big hit, right? Hawaiian meatloaf, I use, ground pork, ground chicken, pineapple, some teriyaki sauce, and you use coconut oil when you make the rice. You use a little coconut oil in the rice, and the coconut oil makes the whole bowl of rice taste very, very much like coconut. And when you mix that rice in with the hamburger, or with the pork and chicken, right, it gives a very coconut taste to it, very pronounced. And you could throw in some, coconut, sprinkles if you can buy the at the store possibly. But you get a can of chunk pineapples, and you use some of the liquid to make the rice, and you throw the chunks in with the pork and the chicken. See, and it comes out really good. It's great. Okay, so that's Hawaiian rice for like a Super Bowl party, something like that. For Thanksgiving, it's an alternative to the regular bird on the table, because there's 3 problems with turkey, and one is that it's stringy, long fibers in the meat. So you want to break up the fibers, right? If it's ground turkey, the fibers are broken up. Also, the flavor, sometimes turkey is lacking a little bit in the flavor department, so you can mix ground chicken in with the ground turkey to add some flavor to it. And then you got poultry spices you could throw in there also. And finally, another problem with the turkey is that it dries out too quick, which is why you have the cranberry sauce, and you also have the gravy for the turkey, because the turkey meat dries out too quickly, right? When it's ground up and it's in the form of a meatloaf, it stays moist, and you got the right spices in there, and you can add some flavor to it. See, so you could have a small turkey on the table, right next to it have the turkey meatloaf, or basically you'll need, maybe for a decent sized crowd, several turkey meatloafs. Or maybe you have to make a huge turkey meatloaf in like a really big casserole dish or something like that, right? But turkey meatloaf is a good alternative to the regular turkey. And you got the stuffing mix, okay, that comes in a box that can be the breadcrumbs for it also. But I would go with maybe turkey stuffing mix and also some rice also, because the stuffing mix, too many breadcrumbs makes it kind of rubbery and makes it kind of spongy. I think the rice makes it more crispier and gives it better texture. So you might want to mix some rice with the breadcrumbs, okay, for like a turkey meatloaf. But think about Halloween. Meatloaf for Halloween. There's recipes on the internet for mixing, supposedly human flesh is supposed to taste like a mixture of beef, chicken, and pork. Or no, beef, beef, lamb, and pork, right? The human flesh is supposed to taste like beef, lamb, and pork, I think. Something like that. You can look that up. And you make zombie meatloaf. If you cook rice with like fruit juice, you can turn the rice different colors, right? And also you can pick up that seaweed at you go to get sushi at the sushi store, at the sushi restaurant, you know, they're popping up all over the place. And you can get some of that green seaweed at some of the specialty department stores, okay, and buy some of that green seaweed. I put a little bit of that in some rice I was making one day, turned the whole bowl of rice green, right? And the seaweed is crunchy and add some texture to it, see? And so there's things you can put in there. So you can consider possibly making, well, you know, if you take green vegetables, right, and you cook them in the crock pot or something, and you put them in the blender and liquefy them, and then you add them. That could be green, okay? And you could put the green color into the meatloaf. That would be an interesting, fun thing to do on Halloween, the zombie meatloaf, right? I don't know how you would get the meatloaf to look like brains. I don't know, but it might be interesting to find out. Okay, so you can use any kind of grain. You don't have to use breadcrumbs, which is wheat, right? You can use rice. I've even seen out there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, some Pennsylvania Dutch people have actually used oatmeal as for meatloaf, right? And it didn't turn out too bad. Okay, so you can use other grains. You don't have to necessarily stick only to wheat. People who are gluten intolerant, people who have celiac disease, you can just forgo the breadcrumbs and go with a different grain of some kind, which is rice. Rice will work good too, right? But you know, you can check out different grains and stuff. Okay, so not just hamburger, not just any grain, and basically that's it. It's easy to do when you just get out the mixing bowl, throw the stuff in the mixing bowl quick, and it's something like 5 minutes to actually prepare it, and you put it in the oven, and it's like 40 minutes in the oven at 300 or 350, something like that, and then you've got a slice of it every day. See? So meatloaf is a really easy, simple thing to do. It's a little tricky at first. Once you get it down, though, it's a very useful skill to have for the rest of your life. And when you're adding rice to it, you're reducing the fat by half. So actually, meatloaf can be really, really very healthy. You could throw broccoli in there. You can throw in any kind of vegetables you want to throw in there. So if you're saying, well, you know, all meat, you know, meat's horrible, meat's evil, whatever. The only thing you really can't do health-wise is tofu. Tofu doesn't work well. You can't make a tofu meatloaf. It doesn't work. Okay, tofu gets very, very hard. Okay, but you can reduce the fat content of beef tremendously, and so there's a lot you can do. So, okay, I think that's it.